When you hear the term creative finance in real estate, it can sound a little broad and a little bit confusing. I know it definitely did for me when I first got into all of this. Really think of it as an umbrella in which many different strategies exist in order to structure a real estate deal. Now, the most common strategies that you will see are both subject to and seller finance. So in today's video, we are really going to discover the differences between each, and I will try to break them down as simply as possible and provide some real life examples so that by the end of this video, you will really understand how each strategy works. So let's start with subject to. Simply put, subject to is when you are just taking over someone's current payments. Now, in this case, we're talking about their mortgage payments. However, when you think about subject to, you can really apply it to many other areas of your life, whether you are taking over someone's phone payments, maybe you're taking over payments on their car. However, like I mentioned, today we're going to talk about taking over someone's mortgage payments. So to keep this a little bit more simple, I'm going to break out my iPad and draw on here actually a real life example of something I'm going through right now. I am in contract on a subject to deal actually in St. Pete, Florida. So this is the house in St. Pete, Florida, right? That's not exactly what it looks like, but you get the point. And this seller, her name is, let's just call her Sarah. That's not her real name. Let's say Sarah, you know, she really needed to sell her house. She had things happening in her life and she really needed to move on from it. So she actually had her house originally on the market asking $340,000. However, Sarah had $320,000 in debt still on the house. So the problem with that is when you are a seller and you need to sell your home, however, you have this much debt still on the home and you don't have a ton of equity, you can't really drop your price much because you don't want to have to come to the closing table and bring money out of your pocket in order to close. So she stayed near that price, and unfortunately she didn't have any luck selling it. So she got frustrated and ended up taking it off the market actually. So when I saw that it came off the market, I saw it as an opportunity for me to reach out to her and see if we can structure something creative, which is subject to here. Because again, there is a debt in place and we are going to try and take over that mortgage. So I reached out to Sarah and I said, hey, I would actually be open to paying you that $340,000 and I will pay the closing cost so you don't have to bring any money out of your pocket at closing. And so she was open to it. So what we've learned from her is that she actually had an interest rate in place on this house of 3.8%. Now, obviously me as an investor, I see that as a great opportunity because if I were to go to the bank today and try to get a loan, I'm probably gonna get maybe a 7%, if that's how you draw a percentage. So I'm probably gonna get 7%, and obviously that's gonna make it much harder to cash flow, and there's usually a lot more red tape, and I have to jump through all these hoops just to get a loan. What's great about this is we were able to structure it where obviously she still had $20,000 in equity. We paid this to her as a down payment. So she is getting to walk away with cash in her pocket instead of bringing money to the closing table. And she is no longer responsible for the mortgage payments, and she can finally move on to the next stage of her life where we as investors, we got a great interest rate. We put less than 10% down to get in this home, and we are able to cash flow from day one since we have a really low mortgage payment. So that's really how subject to works. We are simply taking over the seller's existing debt and both parties walk away with a win. So now let's switch gears and talk about seller finance. So again, up here in this first example, we had Sarah, and this was a subject to transaction. But now let's talk about seller finance. Now the difference here is that with a seller finance deal, there is no debt in place already. That means the homeowner owns the home free and clear. There's no mortgage. He's paid off the original mortgage that he got, or maybe he purchased it in cash originally. So in this example, let's just say Jeff, we're gonna call him Jeff, owns a rental in Tampa, right? So here's Jeff, and let's just say, and he's gonna have spiky hair like me, but let's just say he owns a home, and let's say it's worth, just to keep things simple, $300,000. Now Jeff, he doesn't necessarily need to sell, however, he wants to sell because he honestly is just tired of being a landlord. He is tired of getting these maintenance requests from tenants at 12 o'clock and having to deal with them because there's a leak. That, you know, things just pile up and it can really beat down on you as a landlord over time. And so, you know, let's say he gets to a point where he's just like, look, I just want to be done. I'm tired of the hassle of being a landlord and I want to sell this place. Now, Jeff could obviously try to sell the house traditionally, and he can put it on the market, let's say for $300,000. It sits there for a few weeks. A buyer comes in and offers to buy it for $280,000, and then he accepts it, and then he has to pay closing costs, agent fees. So he actually ends up netting $250,000. So that's one way of doing it, right? Or I could come to him and say, hey, before you even try to sell it traditionally, why don't we structure something on a seller finance deal where I will actually pay you that $300,000. I'll pay all of the closing costs, and you can still receive money on a monthly basis from me. You will upgrade from a landlord to the lender. So what I would do is I'd come in, offer him $300,000, and we would create a note between each other where I would be paying him on a monthly basis. Now, what's great about being a seller and selling it on seller finance is you actually get to dictate what the down payment's gonna be. You get to dictate what the purchase price is gonna be. You can put an interest rate on your loan and you get to dictate that. And then also you get to dictate the term, how long the loan is gonna be, whether it's a 15-year or a 30-year, whatever it may be. So Jeff can decide all this, and I will, if I wanna do the deal, will have to agree on all of this. So in this case, let's say I give Jeff $20,000 as a down payment. And then we structure the $280,000 as a mortgage between me and Jeff. So then he will decide what the interest rate on that's gonna be, what the term's gonna look like, and at the end of the day, honestly, I don't really care what interest rate he puts on it. I don't really care what the term is. The most important thing to me as an investor is that whatever that monthly payment to him on a monthly basis, as long as that is less than what I can get on either a long-term rental, a mid-term rental, or a short-term rental, it's a good deal for me. And so this is an opportunity for me to get into the house with $20,000 down, to structure it with a seller where there's not as much red tape with trying to deal with a bank and get a traditional loan, and he, the seller, can get his $300,000 purchase price. So again, it's a win-win for everybody because Jeff does not have to deal with tenant issues anymore. He's still receiving monthly income from the property, and I am getting in on maybe a lower interest rate, hopefully than market, and I am able to get into this house without, again, going through all the red tape of it all. So now after explaining all of that, you know, you may be asking, why would Jeff do this though? Why wouldn't he just take the $250,000 and walk away with it? At the end of the day, everyone's scenario is different. Not all sellers necessarily need all that cash up front. Maybe they just want to get rid of the headache of having to be a landlord. So this is a way for me to come in and really still pay him on a monthly basis, but he just doesn't have the headache anymore. And he's also getting more on paper for his property than if he were to sell traditionally. You know, it's really up to the seller whether they want less amount of money in the short term or more money for their property in the long term, which structuring it this way, he's getting more money in the long term. And you know what's great about it is he is going from being the landlord to the lender. He's upgrading. He's going to the top of the totem pole. Now, if you've ever looked at banks' logos, it's actually very interesting. A lot of their logos, they have eagles as their logo. And do you know why? If you look at a totem pole, like literally, I'll put a totem pole right here. If you look at it, an eagle is at the very top. So just as a bank is at the very top and they are the eagle of the totem pole, so is a lender when they go from being a landlord to a lender, just like Jeff would be in this seller finance example. So now let's just recap the main differences between these two strategies. Again, subject to, you are simply just taking over the existing payments on someone's mortgage. In seller finance, there is no mortgage in place. you are simply creating a mortgage with the seller in which you will be making payments to that seller. In my next video, I will dive a little bit deeper into why sellers may choose these options to begin with and talk about how they are actually protected, because I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you're watching this of course, may be wondering, okay, well, if I let someone take over my mortgage, how do I know that they are going to actually make the payments? What if they don't? How does that hurt me? Same with seller finance. If I structure a seller finance transaction, how do I know this person is actually going to pay me, and what happens if they don't? So make sure you subscribe if you want to really know how all of that works. And if you found this video helpful, please make sure you give it a thumbs up and comment down below any questions that you may have. Usually there are questions. I know I definitely had a lot when I first learned about all of this, but that's what all of this is about, right? We're just constantly learning and improving and learning how to invest and create a real estate portfolio over time through creative real estate strategies. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you guys in the next one.